On today's episode of Locked On Wild, a new frontrunner for the Marco Rossi sweepstakes emerges.
Hey, this is Matt Duchene, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we will take a look at a potential new frontrunner for Marco Rossi's services. We'll also talk about two names on the free agent market that could be options, but we'll see whether or not they make sense for the Minnesota Wild to pursue in free agency. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, host of Seth on Sports on Radio Mankato, and credentialed member of the media. Alex Micheletti is our guest here for today's episode. And Alex, more swirls, more rumblings. We're just going to continue to, I know people have probably been Rossi'd to death at this point, but we're going to continue to just read the tea leaves. And if we are going to have something happen before the draft, that means that there's just going to be more and more steam on this over the next couple of weeks. There were some rumblings over the weekend that the Vancouver Canucks have pulled into the lead. Michael Russo did a nice little roundup as looking at the teams that are very interested. You know, we've touched on a couple, such as the Philadelphia Flyers, talked about them. We've talked about the Buffalo Sabres quite a bit as well. But Vancouver is an interesting one because you look at their prospects, you look at their players on the roster, and they don't really wow me. Like, I know one of the players that was mentioned strictly because of the Bill Guerin tie was Teddy Blueger, and I'm like, that really doesn't do anything for me. But they have a first-round pick that they are reportedly very interested in moving on from. And I'm just going to continue to emphasize the point that I think a lot of people are looking at this as strictly one trade, where you're trading Rossi, so you better get something that immediately helps the roster for this upcoming season. I'm of the belief that I think this is going to be done in a couple parts. And it may end up that you look at, well, we moved Rossi and we ended up with this player. But I don't think it's going to be like strictly A for B. I think it's going to be A for B and then B for C. And honestly, you know, let's just start with the 15th overall pick, and 15th overall pick in players. Like, what does that do for you as a return for a guy like Marco Rossi?
Yeah, not a whole lot, right? All we've heard too is that this draft is kind of underwhelming, you know, compared to some other drafts. And so I'm with you. They can use that as ammo to try to make another deal, because we've talked about it. It's going to be tough for them to get what they want in free agency. Now, there are some intriguing options that we'll talk about later here, but it seems like the trade route is where they can really try to make some headway. And so, yeah, that'll be interesting to see if, like you said, if they can make one trade and then make another trade upcoming. And it's going to be nice to, that the draft is a couple days right before free agency, so they can really start to make some decisions quick here. And as we know, this is this year they're doing the draft remotely, so not everybody's together. So it seems like why we're getting so much rumors too, or more swirls, is they had the the combine this past weekend, and all the teams are there for that and interviewing players. Of course, the Wild do not have a first round pick as of right now, but that could obviously change. But the teams are together there, so there's opportunities for them to to go over trades and upcoming moves when they're all together there for something like the combine.
So Bill Guerin's going to have to get into a verbal disagreement with Cam Talbot's agent via Zoom this year.
Right. Right.
That's still one of my favorite things of the Bill Guerin tenure, whether you agree with the job that Billy is doing or disagree. That was one of the crazier stories I think that we've had in his tenure, was rumblings that, hey, Cam Talbot's camp is not happy with being in a timeshare with Marc-Andre Fleury, and then they discuss it a little more boisterously during the
public
draft.
tirade in front of the fans too, which is just a wild thing to do.
And Billy's like, he's like, oh, he's gonna have to do something, and Billy's like, no, I'm not going to have to do anything. And then he trades Talbot to Ottawa, gets Philip Gustafson back in return, which is pretty good work there. But I wanted to just go through the teams that have been linked, and we can kind of zero in on the ones that are the most intriguing and the ones that we would like to just please stop calling because we're not interested. So we talked about the Vancouver Canucks. You got the Philadelphia Flyers, which I kind of touched on a few weeks ago. Like, there was all those rumblings that, they were balking at his reported asking price, and the Wilds were looking at either a late first round pick or a player, and the Flyers were like, no, we're not interested in that either. Turned out that all was fake.
Right.
So that's kind of fun. But you got the Buffalo Sabres, you have the Carolina Hurricanes, which again,
the thing with the Hurricanes, we saw that, but they're notorious for not paying guys. So, and if Rossi's not getting, if he's turning down a 5 for 5, does he think, does Carolina think they're going to get him at that rate? And heck no. So it makes no sense for Carolina to, unless they, change their ways.
Yeah, and as Russo notes here, obviously with Carolina having multiple first-round picks, he says Carolina could offer a late first, one of Dallas's future picks or Carolina's own this year, and add to it from there. And I'm like, well, if Vancouver dangles the 15th and they're dangling, a late first, that puts them behind the 8 ball already. So I'm lukewarm on that.
That's the only thing with the Rossi thing is, the team, they have to know that they're going to have to pay him too.
Yeah.
It's like, are you comfortable? Because the Wild clearly aren't. So they're going to, if you're trading for him, you're going to have to, pony up, or that's what they're, that's what his agent's pushing right now.
Yeah. Does not want a bridge.
No,
they're hunting that 7x7. And again, you can thank Matt Coronado for that.
Right.
The 7x6.5.
Which Rossi's probably, I would think, I think he had a better year than Coronado, but that he set the market for Rossi.
Yeah. The Calgary Flames also linked. I don't know if I would really want to pull from a team that struggled to score as much as they did.
Yeah, they're a weird team. They were relying on Dustin Wolf so much to get them to the close to the playoffs.
The Utah Mammoth are mentioned. We dove into this extensively yesterday. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's the tie with his former coach. The Mammoth have the 4th overall pick in the draft. I kind of wonder if that is a little too high.
Yes,
to give up for a player like Rossi. to where then the Wild would have to offer additional in order to make that happen. But obviously they have a need for some offense as well.
Center
you also
help too.
And center help. And then you have the Winnipeg Jets as another team that's mentioned as possibly interested in his services. The honorable mentions are the Montreal Canadiens, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Detroit Red Wings, the New York Islanders, the Maple Leafs, the Sharks, and the Avs. So of those teams, knowing what we know, which one intrigues you the most to get a return from for Marco Rossi?
Yeah, the Utah is just intriguing just because of how many young prospects that team has, and they're very exciting. I think Montreal would be because they have a lot of young talent too, and so those I'm looking at teams that have some young talent that has guys that are on the precipice of being full-time NHLers, because Bill Guerin has said that in a trade with Rossi, he's not looking to make the team worse, so they have to get, I would rather see a guy that's NHL ready now compared to getting draft picks for Rossi if possible. Here's an interesting
thought. I keep going back to the offer sheet, because if you're going to sign him to a deal where he's making over $7 million AAV, then you get a first, a second, and a third. Utah currently has a first, 3 seconds, and 2 thirds for the 2026 draft, including all 3 of their picks.
Yeah.
Obviously, it would not be the 4th overall pick in 2026. You would imagine that Utah makes some sort of a leap. Maybe they go that route.
Yeah, that's intriguing, especially if they miss out on Mitch Marner, because I know they're probably going to be right in the mix for trying to get Marner for sure.
And then let's say Utah does that. You get the first, the second, and the third. And in my scenario that I have again continued to try to push into and I saw that Cam Robinson of on X was also saying, like, don't think of Rossi being traded like strictly for a player that's going to help the Wild immediately. So I'm glad that Cam is also starting to go that route too. If Rossi gets signed to an offer sheet, you take those picks and you flip them to Buffalo or whoever, and there's your top 6. Yeah, there's your top 6 player that comes in and fills a spot on the roster.
Yeah, that fits right into your mold of just parlaying picks into getting a high end top 6 center, which they clearly still need.
Yeah, because as has been said on other shows, like if you're trading Rossi just for picks and that's it, that makes no sense. I agree.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That doesn't help you right now at all.
No. Especially with everybody else in the division getting a lot better.
Yeah, well, other than journalists, but
right.
Hi, Stars fans that are listening to this. So we'll see. I mean, maybe not the 4th overall pick, but maybe an offer sheet for 2026, and you get the first, the second, the third, and then you have that as ammo for a player. Now, let's say they go that route. Let's say the Wild go that route. Rossi's offer sheeted. They get the picks. They go trade for, let's just say, a wing, and you find yourself in need of potential insurance at the center position to make sure that if Danilo Yurov doesn't come in and immediately light the world on fire, that you have somebody that can play either center or can play wing. I think we got a guy in mind. Alex and I will tell you who that is when we come back right here on Locked On Wild. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Guilty. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. I love how Monarch lets you utilize every single dollar of your budget for whatever you want. If you want to be more on the save side, if you want to allocate for some fun, you can put all the funds into different categories, and Monarch will let you know, hey, you're getting close to your allotment for the month, and you can tweak as necessary. But it keeps it all in one place, so you're no longer having to flip through multiple apps to make sure everything lines up. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, appreciate everybody who tunes in on a daily basis. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you have not already, as we continue to move you through the offseason here. We got some special guests coming on the show, ironing out the exact times, but we got some big ones for you coming up here this week. Looking to get Kevin Gorg back on the show, Jesse Pierce as well. So stay tuned for those, hopefully coming by week's end. If not, then for sure coming up next week. So that's in the works, plus plenty more here as we navigate through the offseason. But Alex, we segued it before the break. So let's say Rossi is offer sheeted and you take those picks, you add some other prospects in, you go get Tage, or you go get JJ Peterka, or whatever the return ends up being to fill a top 6 spot with somebody who's a bona fide top 6 player. Now, the plan for the Minnesota Wild this year is for Danila Yurov to play center and to contribute to the roster that way. And I think we all assume he's going to be a top 6 player, if not a borderline top line guy. But you know me, I always like to have backup plans, because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So it's always good to have contingency plans and other fail safes to go off of. And one name kind of popped up on the free agent market, especially with what's going on to the south. And there just isn't a lot of money for the Stars at this point to retain particular players. How would you feel about the Minnesota Wilds going 1 or 2 years with the likes of Matt Duchene?
I think it'd be a tremendous move by Bill Guerin. I think, he would really help, Matt Boldy and on that second line, if they have Boldy on the second line, and get Zook back with Kaprizov. And I think he'd be a great option on the power play too. He's always been, really dynamic on the power play. He had a great season with Dallas, and I think they could get him cheaper than some of these other players. I think he would just be a great fit. He's a Bill Guerin type of player, and bring more skill to the Wild lineup. And I think he's looking for more than 1 year, so I'd be fine with 2 years. He's 34, so that get him to 36. I think that's a perfect time range for the Wild.
So here's the case for it, and I know a lot of people immediately are going to say 34 years old, hard pass. He has been a top 6 guy for Dallas for the last couple of seasons after he was bought out by the Nashville Predators. He has never scored fewer than 22 goals in the last 4 seasons. He has never played fewer than 71 games in the last 4 seasons. He has never had in his career a face-off percentage below 50% other than his rookie year in which he was 19 and he was at 44. He's been 50 or better every year since, and it's fluctuated. Some years he's been a forward. Some years he has been more of a wing. Some years he's been more of a center. This past year, he had 840 faceoffs, and he won 52.4%, which would lead the Wild by far. In as far as all the other categories go, you know, he played roughly 17 minutes per night. Shot a career high 19 second best, 19.7%. 8 power play goals. He had 27 power play points. Again, can help make moves there. And I'm suggesting it as a possibility to take a little pressure off of Danila Yurov to immediately have to come in and immediately come in and perform. Let's say Danila Yurov impresses and it's like, okay, he clearly is capable of playing second line center. Then you put Duchene on a wing or on the third line, and all the, like, if you would have Ek and Yurov and Duchene as your top 3 centers, and if you really wanted to get crazy with it, Duchene, Yurov, Ek as your center hierarchy.
Right. And it's cover, because we know this Wild team, they always have injury problems, and he's pretty durable. There's cover there too. You know, if you have him on a wing and then have to move him to center, you know, it solves that issue too.
1-year deal for like 5.
Yeah,
I mean, he made $3 million this past year.
Yeah,
with
it was
Dallas.
a bargain. It was a bargain.
I'm saying if you could get, because as we'll talk about later this week, the 2026-2027 free agents, unrestricted free agent and restricted free agent class is absurd. So I am not wanting to see this team like go crazy and overbid to get somebody's services. Like I love Sam Bennett. He's not coming here because somebody's going to give him 9 or 10. He's not coming here. But compared to some of the other players out there, you could do a lot worse than Matt Duchene for like 1 year, $5 million. And for the argument of, well, he put up all those numbers because he's playing with Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, and all those people. Like, he'd be playing with potentially Kirill Kaprizov, most likely Matt Boldy. That's not nothing. Like it's not like you're gonna staple Marcus Foligno and Ryan Hartman as his wings and say, okay, go get him. Like,
right. And he's always been great on the power play too, and has always played well against the Wild. He's, you know, dominated against the Wild. So it'd be nice to have him, you know, be on the Wild for once.
All I'm saying is consider it.
Right.
On a potential 1-year deal, see how it works out. If it doesn't, you cut bait. If Danila Yurov takes that job, then you don't give it another thought. But I like, as much as the plan is just 100% like put him in that spot and let him do his thing, always have a backup plan.
Right. And we have no idea how Yurov is going to be. You know, not everybody is, you know, Michkov and Demidov, where they just immediately, you know, take off, and he's going to be playing the hardest position in hockey is center. There's so much responsibility, not only offensively, but defensively is even more important. And, you know, we saw it, you know, Husandinov, it was a hard time for him over here. So, you know, we'll see with Yurov, and, you know, I know it's nice that he has Kaprizov here as well to help him adjust to, to living over here in Minnesota and easing into, life over here and getting comfortable. But, we'll see once the lights turn on.
For every Matt Boldy and Brock Faber, there's a Marco Rossi.
Right.
It just takes players different lengths of time to get accustomed to playing at the NHL level. That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Now, there's another name that is likely going to enter the free agent frenzy, that I think probably I'm okay with not going after, and we'll tell you why. It's a wing and a rival team who's going to hit the open market. We'll talk about Nikolaj Ehlers as we finish today's episode of Locked On Wilds after this. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, we thank you for subscribing. Make sure to like today's video and subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Alex, another player I wanted to touch on because I've seen some suggest, hey, go get this guy. Nikolaj Ehlers, who was with the Winnipeg Jets, and now it sounds as though he's going to test the market. He made $6 this past season, $6 million, the final year of his 7-year, $42 million deal with the Jets. He is 29 years old. He's a left-hand shot. That's the other thing. Oh, never mind. I was going to say that's the other thing about Duchene is he's a right-hand shot. He's a left-hand shot. I don't know where I picked up right-hand shot, but Ehlers had 24 goals. He had 63 points in 69 games this past year. He, in his first 3 years in the league, he played 72, then 82 and 82 games. Since then, in order, and I know there are shortened seasons in here. In order, here are the games played that he's had per season. Starting with 2018-2019. 62, 71, 47, 62, 45, 82, 69. As I said when I joined Kevin Gord's show, Wooden Sticks, if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, go check it out. As I said with Brock Nelson, I'm going to say the same thing with Nikolaj Ehlers because he is going to get a hike. He's going to get a bump in salary. I'm okay with letting somebody else spend that money as opposed to the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, it seems like Chicago is hot on his tail, so he's not leaving the division most likely. So get used to him still trying to terrorize the Wild. Intriguing talent. You're always wanting more from him, though, right? And so yeah, we'll see. He's going to get the bag most likely, just because. He's still, like you said, he's 29, so they can, he's trying to cash in one more time at a big bag. So, yeah, it's gonna be intriguing where he ends up. He had a good run in Winnipeg there, and kind of towards the end, it seemed like they were priority, having other guys being more important on the pedestal. Up there, and so he's ready to just get a fresh start.
Yeah, and it's that's the thing that happens with good teams is you end up having a lot of guys making premium dollar, and you can't afford to keep everybody back. And Mark Scheifele got paid. Kyle Connor's in the final year of his deal, so he's gonna get kept around. I would be shocked if he ends up leaving Winnipeg.
They give Iafallo a new deal too,
yep.
And they got to figure out what they're gonna, with Velarde there too, and so yeah, they have a lot of young guys in their prospect pool that it's their time too, and a guy like Brad Lambert who they have that they're excited about, and he can maybe fill that role if Ehlers does indeed move on.
You got to figure out a new deal for Logan Stanley. Just big priorities for the Winnipeg Jets. Before we go, I did want to just take a peek, because I said the 2026, 2027 free agent class is absurd.
Jack Eichel.
Yeah, like you look at the names. Like it was Connor McDavid is potentially a free agent. Now, I think the only way he would leave is if Edmonton royally messes up. But he's likely going to stay. But you've got some intriguing names on the restricted free agent pool as well. So if you don't end up, with a big move this offseason, I don't think that's the worst thing. I still think that the trade is going to be the bigger route that they go. But again, a 1-year deal, 1 or maybe 2, I think you could do a lot worse. And let us know in the comments what you think. Would you be in favor of that type of a contract being given out, or are you just absolutely no on anybody over the age of 30? Let us know in the comments. Let us know what you think. Throwing it out there as a possible option.
It's hard because you don't see a ton of free agents under the age of 30, right? This is where, because teams like they do their best to try to keep their own players, and then they either get frustrated or just are saying, hey, we gotta get a fresh start here. So you don't see it too often, and that's why Marco Rossi's so highly sought after, because they see the 60 points, they see he's only 23, and that's don't see that too often, and that's why a while they're going to have their pick of teams after him, and that's why it's on Bill Guerin to get this right, because if he doesn't get it right, then the pitchforks are really going to be out.
Yeah, it's real prove it territory for Bill Guerin with this trade, because there are big ramifications for before, after, and during. So we'll continue to keep you up to date as to what we know, what is going on, and more importantly, what happens. So make sure to stay tuned to Locked On Wild so you don't miss out on any news regarding your favorite hockey team all throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.